So, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming out on a Monday. It's really nice to see everyone. So, we'll be getting started with the awareness to action portion of the program. We've switched the order of the first two things. So, tomorrow's Earth Day, and we're aware of a lot of things that we need to do for the Earth. So we want to go from awareness to action. And you might be wondering, where do we start doing that? Because there's so much to do. Climate action can be hard to wrap our heads around because it's so big, the planet's enormous. Do you want to introduce yourself? Hi, I'm VT. I'm the Natural Resources Director for the League of Women Voters and one of the co-organizers of this event. And this is Aruhi, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi all, my name is Aruhi. I'm a volunteer with the League of Women Voters. Thank you all for joining us on this lovely Monday afternoon. So Deepthi left with a very ominous question. What does that mean to turn climate? What does it mean to be a climate activist, to want to do something to help save the planet from this impending doom of climate change? Well, thankfully, it's very easy to feel helpless, but today we're joined by a stellar group of panelists who are, in their own ways, turning their own individual feelings of helplessness into hopefulness. So, Deepthi, what do you think is the hardest part of getting started with climate action?
Yeah, and the thing is, there are two extremes, and they both seem like they don't work. On the one end, you have things like tote bags and recycling and buying different things, and that feels doable, but often we wonder, is that having any effect? We're spending all this effort, is it changing anything? But then there's the other extreme of stuff that could really have an effect. Let's pass laws and let's change corporations. But the challenge with that is how do you do it? And it seems hard to plug yourself into that sort of change. And it's really easy to burn yourself out doing these small things because even though they're easy, they add up in effort that they take from you. And especially if you're not seeing an effect, it can be really demotivating. And so often people will kind of bounce between the extremes of I'm going to have the most plastic-free house ever, and then you do it, and then you think, oh, the planet's still in trouble though. And this is something I've had to figure out for myself. So I think one of the things that I recommend to people is to try to go a little bigger in scope where you can. And that ambition can sometimes be effortful, but it can also be encouraging. And one of those larger scopes is politics. And politics is so vast and contentious and unapproachable. So, Aruhi, how do you even tell if you're making a difference in politics? Or how do you even approach something like that?
This is my chance to go on a little rant, because I work in politics. This is my life. I breathe it. I exhale it, because that's important in this movement. It's very easy to feel disheartened, right? I see lots of nodding heads, folks who've done whatever little or whatever lot they can to help Mother Earth survive in this moment. And it's especially, you can feel especially disheartened when the one or handful of times you've actually tried to do something feels like it's not going anywhere or it's not having an impact. But here's the thing. I worked in politics my whole life for elected leaders and for nonprofits on climate advocacy, on climate change, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Decisions are made by those who show up persistently. Change doesn't always happen, and we can't guarantee it happening through federal levers of government right now, right, through Congress. We have to hold our breath a little bit for any sort of federal action. But there are levels to this work, right? And it's important for you all in this room to figure out which level you want to advocate through change towards. Change can happen at your local grocery store by convincing the manager to dedicate an entire section to procuring and selling only organic foods. Change can happen with city councils, with county commissions, with state legislatures. It can happen at your workplace when you convince the big boss on top to start strategically placing some compost bins around the office. It can happen in your apartment or your condo complex or even through your HOA by forcing folks to install EV charging stations or repainting the rooftops a lighter color to prevent urban heats rising. That didn't make sense. Reduce urban heating. Here we go. Change also doesn't have to mean a specific policy win either, right? You can change the way a movement thinks about an issue by bringing in underrepresented community voices. You can change the way a politician thinks about a particular climate issue by sharing a personal story, and my goodness, do politicians love a good personal story that they can share with the media or on the floor. So think about that personal connection to climate change that's driving you to be here today on this Monday evening. So the long and the short of it, it's really easy to feel like you're not making a difference when we set the bar really high, like pass the Green New Deal through Congress. Yes, we need that, and we also need you pushing for change at all levels of influence. So remember, decisions are made by those who show up persistently. So whatever issue drives you, pick a level of influence or an influencer and just show up persistently. That's simple. So our goal for this afternoon, there is something in the back of your minds, an issue that brought you here to this library conference room. Clean energy transition, environmental justice, getting rid of plastics, protecting wildlife and natural places. There is something that brought you all here.
And our goal is for you to be able to leave feeling empowered with something that you can do about that goal that will make a difference. Because there is a scale to the stuff that you can do. You're an individual. But your actions can add up with other people's actions if you know how to make them count. And so our goal is for you to have at least an idea of your next step to how you can plug into something big.
We're excited to introduce you to these community leaders, and we hope you pay attention to the specific ways in which each panelist is advancing change. How are they communicating their message? How are they coordinating action in their communities? How are they thinking through their theory of change? Some questions to ponder.
And one of the things you might notice is that a lot of these leaders are in this for the long haul. This is something that has, setbacks and one step forward and one step back, and you sort of have to expect that and be ready for it. And you'll see that, people can find a groove where they're just comfortable doing this for as long as it takes, and it's just a part of your life. And I'm hoping that a lot of people think of it that way, because it is easy to burn yourself out and just kind of set an impossible goal, as Arlene was saying, like, I will solve climate change tomorrow. And then you'll be disappointed. So you want to have that. Yeah, that did happen to me. And so you'll want to be able to think about it on a longer time scale. So our two panels will talk about two important aspects of climate action. There's advocacy and communication.
The first panel will dispel some myths about advocacy. As an advocate, let me be the first to say it's actually not that hard. All you're doing is urging a decision maker to do something in support or in opposition of what you believe to be the best course of action. Advocacy can involve changing policy, regulations, corporate governance, or purchasing practices. You can send a little texty text. You can write a letter. You can engage social media, create a new TikTok dance. I don't know. You can knock on doors, create a petition, you can protest. The world is your creative oyster. And it helps to have as many voices as possible join you in urging an official to change their mind. Just remember, show up persistently. Y'all get it? Repetition?
And so you want many voices to show up with you, and how do you tell them about the thing you're doing so they can support you? So climate communication is an important part of anything you do for any type of action you take. So you can tell people about campaigns you're working on, and a lot of this is about timing. So if you're doing something and you get a lot of people to spread that same message at the same time, that's how you get attention to your issue. And there are many ways to communicate. If you're a TikToker, you could dance about it, you could write about it, you could make videos, or you could just tell people in person. One example is what we're doing right now. We're trying to communicate something that we would like you to do. And you can bring your own kind of artistic expression to it. You can do it however works best for you. And we will see that many of our panelists have their own ways of communicating that might inspire you to try something similar. So, tomorrow's Earth Day. This is a really good time to notice what different organizations are doing. A lot of them try to be visible at this time. And what we're going to recommend is try things out. Go sign up to hear from a bunch of different organizations. We'll have an activity later in this program where we will list a whole bunch of options on how you could plug yourself in. And it tends to be a bit of a process. You try stuff out, some things work for you, some don't. You can lurk on some email lists or on social media. It does pan out eventually. So we're hoping that some of this will become a little more real and a little more tangible as a next step as a result of this program. And I would like to introduce our League of Women Voters Torrance area president.
Hi, I know some of you. If you don't know me, my name is Gloria Gutierrez. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters, Torrance area, not national. We are a multi-hierarchical organization, so we have a local chapter, so anywhere in the country, mostly is all covered by local chapters. And then above that local chapter would be potentially a county chapter, which we happen to be part of the LA County chapter, and then the state, and then the national. And so at each of these levels, there's things going on, and we've actually been very active recently. So I would heavily recommend checking out our US site because we've been making a lot of statements lately, for good reason. At the local level, we really do focus on local issues. So we're trying to keep tabs on what's happening at the city level, what's happening in our city area. We actually cover 5 cities: Torrance, Lomita, Harbor City, Carson, and Gardena. And we are the go-to for candidate forums, for election-related information for all those areas, for pros and cons on the measures that are happening at the state level or local level. And we do a lot of stuff during elections, but also all the rest of the time, we are still doing educational events around things like climate. So DT, as you know, is our natural resources director, but we also cover a social. We have a social director whose work has to do with, let's say, housing and homelessness, around healthcare that might be related locally. We have our education chair who's focused on all things education locally. And I think what really brought me into the league from the beginning was I was looking for an organization that was nonpartisan, that was still in the political space, and was doing something about climate change. And I knew, like as was talked about earlier, that you couldn't do this without looking at like elections, without looking at campaign finance reform, because in order to get into the room and make those decisions, you need to have the process to to be elected potentially. I mean, they are the ones making decisions on our behalf, and we get to speak truth to power to them. We also have to get there eventually ourselves if we want to be making a difference. So that's actually how I found a home in the league. I was looking at who's doing this work, who's in this space, and it really was the League of Women Voters, and that's how I got involved in the local chapter. And so I started as a secretary, moved on to Natural Resources Director, and then the presidency, but I really miss the Natural Resources Directorship. So I think part of what I'm wanting to impart to you all is that right from the beginning, like one meeting I showed up and I was at the board meeting and I was just an observer, and the next meeting I was already in leadership. And it can happen that fast if you're ready. So there's other organizations where you need to get in and kind of you get a feel for it, and as they were mentioning, like shop around a little bit. But once you figure out where you're at, you can dive in, and that's actually what I really appreciate about the league as opposed to other organizations is it can take some time. And with the league, they're like, hey, you have hands, you can make it happen. Come and join and help us with the great work that we're doing. So outside of natural resources, we have run other local education events. We've been having an ongoing series on acknowledging the racism that has happened here in Torrance, our historic roots. We also have had ongoing education events around housing. So we look at maybe sometimes a specific housing situation that's going on, maybe a project that has to be approved through the city, and a lot of times our residents are interested in knowing, you know, hey, have you done everything you need to do? Are there going to be sidewalks? Is there going to be a lot of traffic? Is there going to be a lot of parking? Is it next to local public transportation so we can maybe rely on less parking? And we get to be a forum where local residents come and ask those questions and hopefully get to hear some answers from people who are part of the project. Let's see. And then of course we have our election related materials. So we recently did a talk in the fall that was on different ways that elections can vote for the most fair elected person. So we're used to the type of election where it's two people against each other and you're voting for one of the other two, and you hear that phrase, the lesser of two evils, all the time. But there are other ways. Some of you who here has heard of ranked choice voting? We're getting there, a third. If you know a little bit about ranked choice voting, you might know there are other voting methods that, as they get evaluated, turn out to be even more fair than ranked choice. So knowing that there isn't just ranked choice, that is a buzz name now of, hey, you could do it another way that might be more fair. There are options that are even more fair. And I was thinking about this recently because I was in a conversation with somebody who's like, well, my vote doesn't count anyway. I'm in an area where everybody votes differently than me, so mine doesn't go anywhere. And I said, if you've checked recently, you probably found that it was actually, you ended up voting for a lot more things that passed than you thought, because here in California, we have made changes to make elections represent the voices that are in them on a more fair scale for everybody. And that can be done, knowing that it doesn't have to be the way that it has been, and that there are better ways, and that the league can help make that happen. It matters to me, so I hope it matters to you too.